And here we are. Welcome to this week's version of Lunch for the Soul. And I hope this will be lunch for your soul. Grab a bite to eat, whatever you want, some hot tea, coffee, whatever you're enjoying at this hour. And let's sit back and talk about how faith can make such a big difference in our lives. It's incredible what a little bit of faith can do when you're going through a tough time. And I have the perfect example of that. So please welcome Jamie and Brian Fisher. Hello, welcome to Lunch for the Soul.
Hi, Melissa.
Hey, how are you?
Well, I am doing well, and I cannot wait to share your story because you have a dramatic one. And let's just start from the very beginning with you were thinking, as to very many young couples do, about starting your family, but it was a little bit of a challenge at first. Let's start from the beginning and where you were with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like any young family, I think, we had bought a house and we were kind of ready to start filling out the house, if that makes sense, and kind of adding to the family. And, we're just looking forward to the adventure and kind of the process that comes with it. And, all the kind of fun things you look forward to, right? Getting pregnant and kind of putting a nursery together and planning things out and getting clothes and all that kind of fun stuff. So, we were just ready to kind of take that next step in our life journey together.
And like so many couples, it just doesn't come like that. I think when you grow up and you dream about getting pregnant, it's going to be so easy. But you all decided to try in vitro fertilization. And so at that point, I understand that you said, we're going to try one embryo and see what happens. But that turned out to be a really big surprise, didn't it?
Yes. So
Tell me about that.
We went through multiple types of fertility treatments and then eventually progressed to IVF. And that was a challenging time as well, just because we, like you said, many couples felt that we would have an easy time, and there wasn't really anything holding us back from everything that they had done test wise. And so progressing to that is a challenge in and of itself. And it is kind of rigorous, everything you have to do during the fertility treatment with IVF. And so we had multiple embryos that were harvested, they call that. And then they progressed to a certain point that you can actually put the embryo in. And we had 2 embryos, but because of my age and whatnot, they only wanted to put one in, just because there is an incidence of multiples. And so we had 1 embryo put in, and we got the news at our first ultrasound with our fertility doctor that we actually were having twins, and that was quite a shock.
So that means, and this is very rare occurrence. So you were having identical twins. This is not because of IVF. I mean, that embryo split, and it meant that you were getting 2 babies. What a surprise, and a beautiful surprise, I'm sure, but a shocker at the same time, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So I think in some ways we were prepared for every outcome, but that was, kind of almost seemed like the best outcome. We wanted to have 2 children, and this is a picture from our gender reveal. So Brian's an avid golfer, so we got one of the golf balls that has the color that display or kind of shoots out when you hit it, and so we found out we were having twin boys. And this was just really an exciting time. That looking back at that picture, yes.
What a neat big reveal! That is so awesome. So did you have family and friends standing around?
Yep. My parents were in town, and both of her parents were over as well. And, we kind of gathered around and kind of were trying to figure out, everyone kind of made a little bet on what we thought it would be. And, funnily enough, I was kind of convinced we were going to have twin girls, because her grandmother for years since we've been together has been kind of speaking and saying, I think you're destined to have twin girls. And to be fair, she was 1 for 2. She guessed the twin part right, but we did end up with boys. So,
Well, and here you are, preggers. Oh my goodness, it had to be such a fun Christmas of getting ready and just thinking about what was to come. But then I want to talk more about when your faith really had to come into play here, because you go to a routine ultrasound and you find out some alarming news. So you'd already been surprised once. Now you get a new surprise, and this one was a big shocker. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's it's a little bit of a gut punch. And I say a little bit, it's a lot of bit of a gut punch, right? You look back and, it's a gut punch to anyone that kind of has that news. But when you think about kind of where we were beforehand and all the effort and, um, what we went through to just get to that stage, and then to kind of have them be like, hey, we're not in a good spot, really, really kind of takes the legs out from under you. And yeah, I kind of look back now and I'm able to smile and laugh, but it was hard. That's not a fun conversation to have. That things aren't well, and may not end up well, and that's unfortunately the reality of the situation sometimes.
And I'm sure you had to just immediately almost get into that doctor mode and research mode of figuring it out, because a lot of people may never even heard of TTTS or twin transfusion syndrome. Had you ever heard of this before?
I had not. I think we both specifically tried not to research all of the possible things that could, affect a twin pregnancy from like a negative standpoint. And so we didn't really go down that avenue, just because that would probably heighten my anxiety at the time. And so, yes, I mean, when we got this diagnosis, it was fresh to our ears. And of course, we immediately began researching, but we had a great team of doctors and staff here in Birmingham that were eventually able to kind of set us up for success in Houston. So
Yes. And that's the reason that I'm so blessed to get to meet up with you and talk to you, because of my friends over at Texas Children's Hospital who told me about your journey. And, they told me how faithful you two were and how much you believed everything was going to be okay. And they were so in awe. So you came here to Houston because they were able to help you while you're pregnant deal with this. So let's talk about more for people who don't understand what's going on with the situation and how they were able to help you at Texas Children's Pavilion for Women. So what happens is they use a small camera. They have to go in because you've got abnormal blood vessel connections where one baby is getting more blood than the other. It kind of explained that it's difficult to understand for, like I said, most people haven't even heard of this situation.
So when I was initially diagnosed with the twin transfusion syndrome, we were pretty much, it was too early on for us to actually do anything because of kind of where, like you mentioned, the placenta was located. They couldn't safely go in and do the surgical procedure. So that was really hard news to get in and of itself. And we knew after researching kind of what the potential outcomes could be, that we very likely with no intervention could lose both of our boys, or, we may lose one of our boys. So that was a really big test of our faith at that time. And we have a really strong church community here. We are have been small group leaders up until this point, and our families as well. And we just kind of leaned into that. We had many people praying over us to try to kind of get us to this point where we could potentially seek an intervention. And literally by the grace of God, we made it those 3 to 4 additional weeks to where we could actually come to Houston for this procedure, and that things really remain stable, because there's things that they're looking at in the ultrasounds that may progress to the point that we need an intervention. And so it was really that fine line of we kind of made it to the point that we were able to do that. So we come out, we go in for an ultrasound. We were going twice a week to our doctor here in Birmingham, and we had been kind of prepared at this point, having reached out and talked with the team at Texas Children's. So that really helped ease a lot of our anxieties and concerns. And so we felt really prepared when we got the news. But it's still kind of a shock to say, okay, now's the day, you're flying out this afternoon and you're having the surgery tomorrow. So we get to Texas Children's. They were a phenomenal team there. We got straight into the hospital, met with our surgeon, who is the one to perform the surgery the next day, and really felt very much taken care of, very thorough evaluation. And it's scary, I'm not going to lie. There's lots of risks that come with the procedure. You can lose the babies during the procedure or shortly thereafter. There's, some complications that can arise that can, lead to you losing the pregnancy later on as well. But I think this is just really a testament of our faith and the support that we had throughout all of this, that we were able to kind of go into this really scary scenario with a lot of like peace and calm. I would
One
say
thing I have seen as a medical reporter through the years is too many times what happens during a crisis like this is it pulls couples and families apart, and especially families who are not of faith. But when you have more of a faith-based family, it seems like it can pull you closer together. And it seems like that's what happened to you two, right? Like you really came together, you relied on your faith to get you through this and to be hopeful no matter the outcome. I mean, certainly you were hopeful, but no matter what, you were prepared for that.
Yeah, and I think to that point, there's really no other option, right? Like what else do you have at that point? So you kind of have to lean in and go all in and just, like you said, hope for the best and lean into your faith and your family. And, we're lucky enough to have a lot of support. And we needed every bit of it. So.
Well, we have the fun news to share because then here come baby. So the procedure went well. It just absolutely as good as could be expected. What a blessing and a testament to the physicians and your surgeons at Texas Children's Hospital. And here they are. So talk about this and when they came into this world.
So that picture you showed earlier of us at the Christmas tree, I'd been admitted to the hospital for about 2, almost 3 weeks at that point. And because everything had been stable, my water broke early. And, all in all, sometimes you can go into labor right after that happens. And this is another kind of God intervention in our mind. We, thankfully did not go into labor because at that point, things would have been for our boys, but I was doing so stable that they let me have a little, they call like a break afternoon. So I was able to come home, put ornaments on the Christmas tree and kind of get the nursery set up. Cause my water broke actually on the day of our baby shower. So we really hadn't had much set up at all. That was a really hard time for us. And then obviously the boys did come early. And with that comes its own set of challenges. That picture you showed there is us holding them in the NICU for the first time. I think that was later on the day that they were born. So very small, but they truly have been fighters all along, and they're very feisty little boys at this point. So,
and I'm glad you brought that up because that is one thing that's so difficult. Is my first son was born a preemie, and it's so unnatural to drive away from the hospital and leave your newborns, right? And I stayed there as much as I could until wee hours of the night. But that is, instead of being everything's so joyful, you're there just waiting for them to grow and probably begging them to drink their little milk and swallow and do everything a baby does, right? So you can get them home.
Yes. Yeah, it was 6 weeks of them in the NICU or kind of their step down unit there. And like you said, we're, suck, swallow, and breathe. Those are the big things they focus on. And as you can see, they're very, very, very small, but they're growing and they're healthy and looking at all the potential things that could have come with us delivering that early and with everything we faced during our pregnancy. They're doing exceedingly well. They're just, we just know we got a little bit more time with them than we probably would have had if everything had gone, had gone normal. So,
and talk about just an up and down row. And now that you can stop and look back, now you have lack of sleep, right? You're not a lot of sleep in your house, but I bet you don't mind too much, huh?
It could be a lot worse.
Yes, for sure. And as you take a look at these photos and you look back at all you've been through, you've got to be proud of how you were able to stick together through all of this, right? What are those emotions like when you look back at how little they are and how they're growing today?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the biggest thing is just looking back and you don't realize how tough you were until you look back and, man, that was really hard. And sometimes, when they're fussy or things aren't going well at the house, you just have to take a step back and be like, you know what? We're fortunate to be here. And we fought a long way to get here. So it's really not that bad. And I think as we both look back on it, we're proud of each other and just kind of proud of the boys too. And just, the fight the entire family had to kind of get where we are. So we're very fortunate, very blessed to be here today.
It's just beautiful to see them and to see what you've done. What have doctors told you about their future? So the procedure was super successful in Houston. Will you be coming back to Houston for any follow-ups, or is everything able to be taken care of there now in Birmingham? What does your future look like for those sweet boys?
So I think, from everything we've been told, we expect them to be perfectly normal. It'll take, probably another, year to year and a half, 2 years for them to get fully caught up. But, once we kind of cross that threshold, assuming everyone's healthy, we expect them to be perfectly normal little boys. Assuming nothing changes with that trajectory, we can do everything we need to do from Birmingham. So as much as I'd like to say hello and thank everyone in person at Houston, again, that's one of those where I appreciate you did all the work for us and everything you've done, but I hope I never see you again under these circumstances.
That's fair enough to say. We will take that, and I'll give you a high five.
Yeah.
It's been a joy to talk to you, but we certainly hope to never talk to you in Houston. From afar is fine, because that means you were all super healthy, right? And that goes without saying. You were dealing with all this in the middle of a pandemic. I'm sure that added a whole new element of stress of everything you've been through.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because that's just kind of went to the back of our minds, right? You do everything you can to kind of mitigate the risk and what you feel like the best choices for your family, and you kind of just make do with it. And I think it kind of took a back seat to everything else, and you just kind of get used to being masked up and trying to social distance and do what you can to protect yourself, but also not distancing yourself from the people you need around you, right? There's that balance of having all that. So
well, and I just look at your journey, and there's so many layers of stress, starting with one of the most stressful that a couple goes through is that beginning stage of going through those fertility treatments. And we know that many people, unfortunately, behind you are going to go through something similar and are right now. What would you suggest to those people going through a hard time like this, or maybe somebody has a baby in NICU or a sick child? What would you suggest? What have you learned from this journey that might be able to really make a difference in somebody's life?
You want to go first?
I would say, the best thing that we did was communicating to our friends, family, and like I said, our church community early on, all of the challenges that we were facing. I think it's easy to kind of internalize everything and just isolate yourself from those other areas of support and prayer and everything that you can have if you just kind of open up your heart and let others kind of take on that burden with you. It was nice to have people checking in and knowing that they were thinking about us, thinking about the boys and praying for the boys. And then, just all the things that we needed, that support once they came early and we were home and trying to navigate back and forth, bringing meals, bringing over just things that we needed, helping set up our nursery when I was in the hospital, just all of these things that if we had not shared what was going on, we probably would not have had that level of support or that much prayer. And we needed it. And I think that these challenges, fertility, difficult pregnancy, a difficult delivery, and children that are facing really difficult odds, that in and of itself is very isolating, on top of being in a pandemic when you really can't be around people. But there's a lot of ways that your community can support you. And if you don't let them know what's going on, they don't know how to do that. So
Well, I'm so happy that you had your beautiful happy ending. When I take a look at this photo and it says dream come true, that says it all right there. Jamie and Brian, thank you for taking time to share your journey, a very personal journey. I know it's making a difference in other people's lives to see how you have been able to lift yourselves up and to be able to take care of your beautiful family. So seriously, only good health and no more visits to H-Town unless it's for fun. You can bring your kids to the beach here when they grow up, and we'll be happy to entertain them.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Well, you all take care. And thank you again for joining us here on Lunch for the Soul.
Sure.
You're quite a blessing to many people, including our own community right here in Houston.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Melissa.
Thanks, Melissa.
All right. Take care of you. And then I just want to remind you all to join me every week right here for Lunch for the Soul. 12:30 on Wednesdays is a place to be. And next week, I can't wait to introduce you to a young woman who said, you know what? There are too many women who don't believe in themselves, people who've been through a hard time. So she works with women's shelters. These are women who have been battered. Many of them have been imprisoned. Many of them are addicted to drugs and alcohol. And she gives them hope through fitness. She gets them all trained up to be able to run 5Ks. And then when they see how strong they can be, it is shaping their lives in different ways than you can ever imagine, and powerful ones. So I hope you'll join me right here for Lunch for the Soul next week. It's going to touch your heart again. We'll see you there. Have a blessed day, everybody.